So, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. has obesity, and 1 in 3 adults in the U.S. has obesity. Obesity is a very dangerous thing to have, and it's very important for us as a country to fight this epidemic. That's why my main claim for today is that fast food advertisements are one of the leading causes of obesity in the U.S. I will prove this to you in 3 ways. My first supporting claim is that children are not old enough to think critically and tend to fall into advertising traps set by fast food companies. My second is that lack of health education in the U.S. leaves many unaware to the dangers of fast food. And my third is that fast food companies tend to appeal to lower income families when it comes to advertising, which leads to obesity in an already vulnerable population. So my first claim that children are not old enough to think critically. In a study done by Simone Nguyen, a professor of psychology at the University of North Carolina, showed that many children had difficulty deciding whether a food was healthy or unhealthy when it came to having shown a lot of food to them, especially when it comes to foods that are very vegetable-based, like potato chips and fries. So with children already not knowing the difference between healthy and unhealthy, adding on to that is the fact that many advertisements specifically target younger audiences by having the ads run specifically on websites or TV channels that are more based towards children, and by having cartoon and celebrities advertise their products. So though there have been restrictions placed on a lot of ads for children, like requiring them to feature some type of vegetable or fruit, there is a lot of leeway for fast food companies. In my second point is that lack of health education leaves many unaware to the dangers of fast food. So in the US, it's reported by the National Center for Education that from kindergarten to 8th grade, only 50% of schools require nutritional education for their students. And only 20% of schools require this nutrition education for high school students. Even though it's important for kids to learn about nutrition and how to feed their bodies, a lot of children in the US are not learning this. And even though they could learn through the example of schools, a lot of the information that schools give can be very misleading. Like in the LA Unified School District, there's a lot of things that can be misleading for them, like juice being considered a fruit and ketchup being considered a vegetable. So the system leaves a lot of uneducated adults that will eventually become parents and be later responsible for feeding themselves and their children. So my third point is that fast food companies appeal to lower income families when advertising their products. And this can lead to obesity in an already vulnerable population. So the mean amount of time spent watching TV in lower income houses is a lot larger than in higher income houses. That means that poorer children are exposed to more fast food commercials in a day. So it's because of these commercials that a lot of deals are being advertised, like $1 burgers or $1 sodas. And this appeals to people with less money and as a way to get them full in a lot cheaper way. And this kind of food can do a lot of damage to their health. So, in conclusion, obesity is a serious epidemic that needs to be addressed and fought. But to fight this disease, it's important to know what's contributing to it, like fast food advertising. Thank you.
Well, let's start with the 2 or 3 really good things. The proposition's very clear. There's an excellent layout of what the supporting contents are going to be. And as you got to each of those points, you signposted them pretty well, and they were phrased as declarative statements, so you're doing a good job there. Content, I think, is a little bit thinner. On the first point, when you talk about how the ads are targeted to children on websites and television channels, and celebrities are endorsing these things, I got no examples, no evidence is being cited there. There's no source for that. I generally think that these kinds of ads are found all over the place. You haven't demonstrated to me that they are any more likely to occur on the children's programming than any place else. So I'm not exactly sure that I'm ready to jump on that particular bandwagon. The issue of nutrition, on the second point, there was a suggestion that there is a lack of adequate information about nutrition here, and I did think that you had some good information here talking about how the schools don't require it. Half the schools don't require it, and only 20% in high school require it. So that does suggest that there is maybe a shortage of information available to especially children. And to me, that was the strongest part of your argument. You did have an example making a reference to the LAUSD, but you need a source citation on that. And whereas I got the source citation on the statistics, I didn't get anything on that. And that's one of the things I think is a little bit problematic. You're hit and miss on a couple of these things. So there's often a good piece of information in one of the supporting points, and then a lot of assertions around it that I think need some more documentation. All right, the third point about the relationship to income basically mentions the price that people could pay for foods, $1 a day, $1 for a burger, $1 for a soda, and from that we get the notion that this is targeting people who are poor. I think that's a big inferential leap. The idea that kids are more likely, and poor families are more likely to be exposed because they watch more television, that's a little bit of a connection, although again, there's no source citation on that information. That seems to be mostly assumed here. On the second point, by the way, that whole second point sounds like it might be an argument that supports that it's not the fast food people that are responsible for this, it's the schools that are responsible because they fail to teach the kids proper nutrition. So that's a competing argument that's being presented there. I thought your presentation was also relatively solid. I thought you had a really nice exit line on the speech too. All right, thank you.